Hello, class. Hope today is treating you well. Let's go ahead and take some notes. The peoples of North America. All right, so a key event to think about is this Bering Land Bridge, or Beringia, that area between Asia and North America, or Alaska and Russia. So during that last ice age, sea levels dropped. There was ice covering that area, and people cruised on over. Okay, they probably followed herds of animals they wanted to eat because that's what people like to do, and they came over to North America. And from there, we have Americans, okay, Native Americans. This is where we get the Mayans, Aztec, Cahokians, all of our North American tribes, the various North American tribes that you have already mapped. You kind of know where they're located. One of the reasons why the North Americans, not just North Americans, but Americans in general, both the North and South, did not do well, of course, is because of diseases brought over by Europeans they did not have immunity to. Okay, things like smallpox, yellow fever, the plague, lots of various diseases that people in Europe and, well, the old world, if you will, Europe, Asia, Africa, had already been accustomed to. Those people had already died who did not have immunity. So, of course, the people who don't have immunity in the Americas, they died as well once it came over. So the impact today, the events that occurred during this time period, still impact us today. So we have the Anasazi culture in the western part of the United States. So Utah, the Puebloans in New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, the Four Corners area. This is the Anasazi culture. If you've ever been over there, definitely check it out sometime in your life if you have not. The Iroquois League, so the northeastern part of our country, was a model for the British colonies as far as this, democratic process. How do we get along? Not issues, but instances of this federal system. How do you get multiple groups of people? How do you get them to get along? The Incan Empire, compulsory military service. This has been used in the United States numerous times, a variety of different times. Some of the main ideas we want to think about: the first inhabitants of the Americas were hunters and gatherers, while later inhabitants also practiced farming. So we do see farming by the early Americans, definitely in the larger populations, because if you want to have a large population, you need a farm. Okay, you need to have agriculture. Smaller populations, yeah, you can hunt and gather. You're okay with that. In the wintertime, go to where it's warm. In the summertime, go to where it's cooler, kind of like our local tribes. We do have a variety of different climate regions in the United States, so we see different characteristics within these different tribes, what they eat, how they act, their buildings, etc. Okay. The lands of the first Americans. So all the way from the Arctic Ocean, all the way down to the Cape of Horn at the tip of South America. So we have people all the way up and all the way down. So the farther you go up, northern hemisphere, of course, you're going to see more tundra, Arctic conditions, and people need to prepare themselves for that. They need to have the resources at their hands in order to survive such harsh climates. We do see different river valleys, like the Mississippian cultures, in the areas of the Amazon, etc., where we tend to see, Mississippi anyways, some larger civilizations. Always hunting, farming, anywhere there's a large amount of natural resources, you're going to see people in these areas. Two major mountain ranges that we need to discuss, and we have a little bit already. So the Rockies in North America, we have those Rocky Mountains, and in the south would be the Andes. So because of these different, basically continental divides, you have people living differently on one side versus the other. You're going to see different climates because of that. We've talked about that idea of rain shadow. So you have a high mountain range, anything on the opposite side of where that weather hits, you're going to have dryness, so not as much going on in those areas because it tends to be somewhat arid. Those broad valleys, you're going to have nice farmland, one of the reasons I had you map so many rivers in North America isn't because I'm crazy. It's because I want you guys to realize that with the abundance of water that we have here in the United States or North America, you know, people didn't need to congregate around a major river like the Nile, like the Tigris and the Euphrates. Here in the Americas, we had plentiful amounts of water. So because of that, because of these different river systems, we see people not having to congregate, not having to create these big civilizations in order to survive. It was a lot easier to hunt and gather, to have water, to have access to resources with more water. Okay, as I said before, the two great rivers that we see in the Americas, the Mississippi and the Amazon. Mississippi is the largest in North America. Amazon is the largest by volume in the world. The Nile is the longest, but the Amazon is the largest amount of water by volume. Okay. Between 100,000 BC and 8,000 years ago, the last ice age left that Bering land bridge, so I kind of already talked about. And the transition of people from Siberia right over here to Alaska, so from Asia over to North America. That's a good little shot of it right about there. So about 3000 BC, the Inuit moved into North America from Asia. A lot of people settled in this cold, harsh, treeless tundra in the coasts of the Arctic. So in order to survive this, most of their calories are getting consumed by eating meats, by eating blubber, whether it be whale blubber, seal blubber. You need a high caloric intake if you're going to be cold. Your body burns more energy, or I don't want to say wastes energy, but burns more energy in a cold environment. It's cold, so you burn a lot of energy. You need to stay warm. Okay, you're like a little heater, so you need to burn those calories to keep yourself warm. Homes were typically made of stone and turf. Igloos, that was like a case of an emergency. That was like emergency shelters or temporary shelters for travelers, or if you found yourself stuck in a snowstorm, you made yourself an igloo to protect yourself from the wind. Okay, that wasn't a normal house for the Inuits. Moving along, the eastern woodlands of North America. This is the area around the Great Lakes all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, so eastern part of the United States. We see the hope whale in the Ohio River Valley. They're known as the mound builders, so the huge mounds that were built. Remember, we read about one specifically, base larger than the Great Pyramid. So interesting to note, and remember, these are Stone Age individuals, so no metal here. They're not using metal as tools anyways. There's metals for decoration and for jewelry, but that's about it. So cities do begin to appear, specifically the site at Cahokia. So these great mound builders that we were just talking about, found barrow mounds throughout this area along the Mississippi. So also known as the Mississippian culture, but Cahokia was the capital, if you will, of this Mississippian culture. Next we have Iroquois, one of your vocab words referring to the longhouse, kind of like a community dwelling. So anywhere from 150 to 200 feet long, a lot of families living in here, and it makes sense. So body heat, just like in the summer and the wintertime, the classroom gets real warm because all those little bodies in the classroom and you guys breathing in the classroom warms it up immensely. So body heat does make us warmer. So if you have a community dwelling like that, definitely helpful. So women owned longhouses. A lot of anthropologists feel that female-dominated cultures, one of the reasons behind it is because those cultures tend to be more warlike in nature. So you can't go off the lineage of the male because a good chance they're going to be dead if it's a warlike culture. So it's easier to keep the lineage through the women and ownership through the women because, well, they're not out hacking on each other. One of the most important crops, we talked about it in class, the three sisters, corn, bean, and squash. They are somewhat symbiotic in nature and assist each other. So, like I was talking about, this area, lineage typically through the females because of these blood feuds. Okay, so a lot of people died through this process, through this feud, and they had to curtail this somehow. And so the story goes, Deganwita preached for peace. The one who listened was Hiawatha. They came to this great peace and created the Iroquois League. So 5 major groups. Let's just go back up here real quick. So 5 major groups right up here went ahead and started not to fight each other so often. Sometimes there was still some fights, but it wasn't as bad as time progressed. So a group of 50 representatives would meet. So this grand council would meet, settle differences instead of killing each other. Probably a good idea. Iroquois society was organized into clans of related families. So, and that's basically what a clan is, okay? Family relations. And as I said, women typically head of the household as far as lineage is concerned. It was proposed that council members, they used logic in ruling and not just acting out of vengeance or anger. They wanted to make sure they were deliberating judiciously. So think about it. What's the logical approach to settling these differences? Okay, everybody needs to be happy. If nobody's happy, someone's going to get upset. Think about little squabbles between neighbors. Some people believe that Benjamin Franklin used this idea of the Iroquois League to help plan the Union, to make sure that all these different states, or early states, the colonies of the United States, got along. Okay, a federal system. We'll talk more about a federal and a unitary system as the year progresses, when we get into the government portion of it last quarter. All right, so the Anasazi, we were talking a little bit about them before. So dry, arid, southwest area. Some historians think it wasn't as dry, as arid as it is now. And one of the reasons why these people disappeared from that area is because it is now dry and arid. There's some evidence that supports that. Not a whole lot. They just learned to, as some people say, they just learned to deal with it. So we do see earthen dams, turning desert areas into fertile gardens. We see this in Southwest Asia also, around the Tigris Euphrates. We see this in Egypt. So we are able as human beings to control our environment. Remember HEI, human environment interaction, and dictate what we want done to our environment. So water it and things grow. They are very well known for their pottery. You did watch that Anasazi video where they're talking about pottery shards. It is, very disrespectful to take those from those areas. You can find pottery shards all over the Southwest. You have to think of pottery back then as Ziploc bags. Pottery was highly important. That's how you carry stuff. That's how you put fluids. We have plastic bottles that completely, destroy the environment. I don't want to say completely destroy the environment, but do harm the environment. This is what they used back then. Okay, they used pottery, so it's something we find all over the place in that area. All right, some of the 2 most important sites, Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde. They are found in New Mexico and kind of in Colorado. There's some historical sites also. So if you do get a chance, do definitely check that out. Very large Pueblo complexes. In Taos, New Mexico, there's also a very large Pueblo complex that people still live in. Kind of interesting to check out these areas if you get a chance. So like I was saying, 50-year series of droughts caused the site to be abandoned. Some historians disagree with that. All right, so what I want you guys to do on page 43 of your notebooks, look at the great principles right over here and answer the prompt, please. Here it goes, more zoomed in. Make sure you pull out the 3 principles from the reading. Have a great day.